Todd Farmer is back. Now, boneheads, I want you to listen or watch or whatever, because I want you to pay real attention. This is his third time. And I have a question for you, Mr. Farmer.
And then I have a follow-up question. So go ahead, Joe.
Masochist?
No, not at all. I'm from Kentucky.
Well, yeah, there's several people from Kentucky, but they don't.
Yeah,
and
but
we've
they're
had
not
a few,
smart.
but we've had a few of them on the show, and they haven't come back for a third time. Jeff Reddick was an absolute joy to us, but he has not reached out for the second and third time.
Well, I mean, he's not as Southern as I am. No, that's not true. He is very Southern.
Oh, dude, he is from Jackson, Kentucky.
He is more Southern than I am, actually, as it turns out.
He's raised literally 45 minutes from the holler I was raised in.
Oh, he's
Jeffrey Reddick is where he's from. I will.
No, he's
next time you're in Kentucky, we will take a ride, which you're in Kentucky all the time.
We definitely should do that.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
It really would. In fact, it would be great if we did a video diary, and we could start in Benton, which is all the way in Western Kentucky, and that's where you're from, correct?
That is true. Yes. I'm not from Marshall County. I'm from Benton.
You're from Benton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
People who are really from there say what county they're from, not what town they're from.
Right. So we'll drive all the way from Marshall County to I forgot where Jackson's actually at, which county. It's Breathitt County. Then we can go to Leslie County, which is where I'm from. But nobody really cares about that because you other two fuckers are famous.
Well, look, we can drive across the whole state in a couple hours. It's not the big deal.
Yeah, and we can stop in Waddy.
It's been a while since you've been here.
I know it has been.
And we can stop in my area, Waddy, and eat at the Denny's, formerly a Chinese buffet.
Totally do that.
And by the way, we love having you back on the show, but you're
confused.
Well, Chad has another question. Then I'll follow up.
And this is a serious follow-up question because I want to know how you feel about this, Todd. Joe, we've known each other, a little over 20 years. And James,
actually, it's over 20. Yeah.
It's over 20.
Friends over 20 years.
Yeah. And James, I've known over 15 years. Not once, not one single time have I ever seen their bare ass. I saw yours 3 times in the span of a month.
I mean, and then wait till you see the movies.
Good one. That's a good comeback. Very sharp. And by the way, I am pretty sure he has seen my bare ass more than once.
I've seen the upper tramp stamp crack area,
the coin slot.
Yeah, I've seen Santa's hidey hole.
He saw the butterfly right above my little butterfly tramp stamp. Be funny if that was actually true.
Not the H.G. Wells area.
Journey to the Center of Joe. Boy, that is that is not a cool looking dude in that picture. Oh my God, he still has the mustache, Todd.
Yeah, young Ron Jeremy's joined us today.
He's got his Jeff Lynne glasses on.
Hey, James, when we're done, we can take that shirt and go have a picnic on it.
I'm trying to audition for like a replacement.
Any minute now, you're going to sell me some paper towels.
I'm trying to replace Al Borland in any future Home Improvement reboots.
We can get some of that fried chicken out of his mustache.
Just a month ago, I did a convention where Richard Karn and I I did his panel twice. He decided to do 2 panels. FYI, I don't know if I told the other 2 boneheads this or not. And he's a fine upstate. Well, he's nice to me.
Well,
but he actually does dress like he does.
That's fine. I will undersell him to replace him, though. That's my point, Joe.
Well, I think the show's over. I think it's done.
Well, no, I know. Well, I don't know. I mean, eventually, if Disney Plus has proven nothing else, it's they're going to reboot everything. We've got the Doogie Howser remake now. I mean, we're good. We're gonna keep remaking stuff.
Well, I was about to ask Todd a very important. Well, I was about to make a statement. You sent me one of the best compliments we've ever gotten on here. And you said, you guys, I went back and rewatched. You didn't say listened. You said rewatched some episodes, and you guys are really smart. You just sound stupid. Now, I wish it just ended there. I was telling someone the other day, I actually posted it online on social media, and I was like, if it'd been me, it would have just ended there. You guys are really smart. You just sound stupid. But you went on to talk about because Southern accents.
Yes.
And
I thought it would be fun for us to talk about that because when I first moved out here, I was the Southern accent. And there's not many of us out here. A lot of the guys who are from, like Jeffrey, we mentioned earlier, he still has his accent. But
a little bit, not as much as you do, Todd. Not as much. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying when I talk to you, I hear it quicker than I do Jeff, but I'm around it every day too.
But but a lot of people who are from there don't necessarily keep the accents. They let them go.
Right.
And it can naturally go away if you allow it. I just never allowed it.
So this is an interesting topic, and I'd like to talk about it for a minute. So Chad and I, both of our degrees are in broadcasting, and Chad worked in broadcasting for a while behind the scenes, but I never really have. But I've tried teaching communication. I've taught 15, 16 years. James has taught for 10, 15 years as well. And I've tried to enunciate, try to, to be more, try to do better. But at the same time, no matter what I do, and you're talking about it going away. So if I'm back in the holler, I sound like I'm out of New York City to those folks. But anywhere else, I sound like I'm out of the holler. And there's certain words, no matter what I do, that I just butcher, like cooler. I will put 14 O's in cooler.
Yeah. For me, library. I say library.
Library.
Any word that ends in ed.
I mean,
dead serious.
There's this bunch of stuff. Like my mom used to say hanger. She would pronounce the G at the end. I mean, it's just everybody. The South is very. I think the biggest issue is that there is certainly in TV and movies, the South was always portrayed as dumb, unintelligent. Yeah. So you hear this accent, even in today's world where, you have intellectual Southerners on television and in the movies, that stereotype is still there. And so
why? And it's not just Southern. I'm going to break this down a little. If they have the nice low, so if they sound like Tennessee Williams or something like that, then it's much more forgiving than they sound like we do from a holler. Or
true, but it's still. But to anyone who is California, New York, it doesn't matter if you got that Georgian accent. You're still going to be considered less intelligent than someone from New York City.
So why on earth do people want to sleep with people with Scottish accents, Australian accents, and us? They just put them into one big stereotyped box that says idiot.
Because the stereotype is that we are dumb. The stereotype isn't that Australians are dumb. The stereotype isn't that the Brits are dumb. We have that. I think it probably starts with the Civil War. Because we lost, and and the reason for fighting it in the first place was not a very intelligent reason. So all in all,
real quick, spoiler alert: we lost. Sorry,
we definitely did.
Yeah, I just want to make. There's some people out there that still aren't sure.
I'm so pissed. I was a quarter of the way through the North and South miniseries. Fuck you, Todd.
Patrick Swayze doesn't make it out either, Chad.
No, he does not. You don't even want to watch.
Yeah, North and South killed him off. MASH killed him off. God killed him off.
And you don't even want to watch Glory and see what they did to Matthew Broderick, because Ferris Bueller don't make it either.
Ferris Bueller, Morgan Freeman, or Denzel.
As long as Lincoln's okay, right?
Oh, don't tell us. Just like,
are you going to retcon this Tarantino history?
Actually, to the point of this, my mother actually has always loved the Beverly Hillbillies because it's an exception to that in a weird way. Like, they are not portrayed as intelligent, but they always come out on top.
Yeah, but that's like the Dukes of Hazzard. So it's the same situation. They're not. I mean, the Dukes of Hazzard weren't. That takes it a step further because they weren't portrayed unintelligent. They were actually much more intelligent than everyone around them. But they're not fighting New Yorkers. They're fighting other idiots. Yeah, they're fighting other rednecks.
Simpletons, really. I mean, people played as a child. So before we go, Go ahead.
I was just going to go back and sorry about talking. I'm going to go back into pop culture real quick because you mentioned Dukes of Hazzard. What you also got to think is, before 1970, probably 1971, for a solid 10 years there, every sitcom on television was the country stereotype. You had every single one of them.
Well, every single sitcom on CBS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when did it start? I mean, did it start with No Time for Sergeants? Because that's certainly the earliest one I remember. And, and he played a very Southern buffoon. And I think that I can't prove that. I don't know this for certain, but I assume Andy Griffith Show came out of that because the first season of Andy Griffith, he played that same character. He got much smarter as the series went along, and Barney sort of took over as the buffoon, and then later Gomer Pyle. But
that's an excellent point. But a lot of it comes from Andy Griffith's humor, though, that even before No Time for Sergeants, because he was a stand-up comedian. And a funny thing about Andy Griffith, there's a movie people forget where he's absolutely brilliant in it, and it forecasted everything that we see. And I don't want to get too political on this, but A Face in the Crowd, a lot of Kazan's,
which is a very different character than anything that he had. I think he since played. I don't think he ever
played anything like it before or since. Correct? He's a villain. He is kind of if Trump was a bumpkin,
a Trumpkin, if you will.
Right, but if social media had existed, that's the way he would have. Instead, he used television. And if you've never seen it, if you're listening to us, A Face in the Crowd, and you're going to watch and go, "Holy shit!"
Like it's if you grew up on Andy Griffith as I did, and then you go back and watch that, it's hard to watch because it's disturbing to watch because you're this guy that you beloved growing up who wouldn't carry a gun is just insane.
Insane, absolutely.
Do a nice double feature of A Face in the Crowd and The Intruder. Just clear your schedule
with Shatner.
Nice double feature. Just ruin everything about your childhood in one quick swing.
Do you mean astronaut William Shatner?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Talk about a late blooming career. Hadn't done anything for 90 years. Now he finally does.
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm so sued.
This is a cliche joke, but that thing really does look like a giant dick. The actual rocket. Sorry, go Todd, go. I don't even know what was stuck in my head.
I was like, I don't have anything in here that looks like a dick.
I fucked it up.
Well, actually, what you don't know is Joe has a certain deformity, and nobody's ever told him what a normal one looks like. So it could be anything.
All you got to do is stand up, brother.
But if I do that, the blood will go to my legs, and then what will I do?
We will judge you.
That's okay. Anyway,
I am standing up, so I can't go any higher than this.
But you do have a cool shirt on. So were you?
I have to. Yep.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you go.
No, I interrupted you. Well, we're talking about Shatner, but we're Andy Griffith. So out of Andy Griffith, a lot of those. Oh, what was his name? Sherman or whatever. Produced a lot of those, like Petticoat Junction.
All of those.
We had Green Acres come from Petticoat Junction. We had the Beverly Hillbillies. What else did we have? I think, and I'm almost positive this is all on CBS.
Green Acres.
I said Green Acres.
Green Acres.
Well, it is the place for me. Farm. Sorry.
And all of these people are Southern. But
what do you think, by the way, and speaking of Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres got replayed a lot. Nick at Night, TV Land, all that. Petticoat Junction never got much airtime that I'm aware of, unless somebody knows of a secret channel where it aired a lot. I remember,
I think it did back in the day before Nick at Night. Like, I'd come home from school and all those shows would be on, and at night all of those shows would be on. The other one, I can't remember the name of it, but it branched out of the Carol Burnett show. It was characters that they played on Carol Burnett and
Mama's Family.
Mama's Family. And, a lot of those shows. But then I was trying to think, you look at, a lot of times there would be that one Southern character. Barney Miller comes to mind, but I don't think there was a Southern character on Barney Miller.
Barney Miller, one of maybe the best cop show ever made.
Oh, I absolutely love it.
I do too.
But, a lot of times it would be one of those things where you would have that Southern character on the show, and that Southern character would be portrayed as an idiot, or the idiot that, like the Beverly Hillbillies or like the Dukes of Hazzard, that tends to overcome against the odds of his or her own intelligence,
because they have a good heart and they're honest.
Good heart, yeah,
and they're honest. Honest country folk, Todd.
And
because I met so many of them.
And I believe at the end of the day, that's why young women and gorgeous gay men would rather have sex with Australians and Brits than the Kentuckians.
Well, I can't get either. So,
but the other thing, speaking of the New York thing, it does seem like that's the automatic. If you're making something and you need to have animosity, you can just pick somebody country and somebody from New York, and that automatically New York City. It's very, let's not go rural New York, because I think it's not a great film by any means, but the film Squirm has an entire thing where worms start attacking people. And of course, the Country Bumpkins line is, those worms must be from New York City.
I don't think New York's that.
I've never seen it.
I wouldn't rush for that. It's basically what happens. Let me spoiler it real quick. They drop power lines into the ground, and it makes the worms start to attack humans. That's the film.
Okay. So it's based on true story.
Yeah, no, it's electric totally causes everything. If it's radiation, it makes it grow big, but electric makes it angry and makes it automatically eat humans.
Much like me.
I'm not going to tell you where he was pointing, but you can probably figure it out.
This is why you should watch this on YouTube. Anyway,
Todd Farmer went to Chernobyl and dug himself a hole, and he did things to that hole.
There's a video.
All right.
By the way, when I was going to say, when I said I was watching you guys, it's because sometimes I will watch something on YouTube and fall asleep, and then I woke up and you guys were, blathering on about something.
Are you shitting me? Really? Just by accident?
I think it's because I'm subscribed, and so after a while, if you fall asleep with YouTube on, it just keeps playing, and then eventually,
what I'm hearing here is that we're sloppy seconds, sir.
Hey.
In all fairness, we don't know how long that nap was. We might be sloppy fifth or sixth.
You were on that day.
Oh,
I'm just glad to be at the table.
I am too. But back to the table. This is a legitimate question, and I want to go through it before we go, because I want to talk about some of the movies that people with Southern accents, or at least we could probably say rural accents, are not idiots. And one of the questions I have is, how hard was it when you got there to have people take you seriously when you got to Hollywood, sounding the way you do?
It actually wasn't that hard.
Damn it.
Dean Laurie was from Georgia, but didn't have an accent because he'd lived in New York for a while. But he had grown up in Georgia, grew up in Conyers, which I believe is the herpes capital of the world, or was at the time.
What the shit?
I don't know how I knew that, but it came out in conversation.
Well, you also were in Chernobyl.
That's true. The only person, like, I've had people comment on the accent. I hear an accent. Where are you from? But the only person who ever sort of stopped and made fun of me was...
I could tell you if you don't remember. Do you want me to tell you?
It was the guy, head of New Line, Toby Emmerich. Yeah. Toby, I was pitching the sequel to The Mask, and it had time travel elements in it. Did I tell you guys this last time?
No. Well, you told us about Toby Emmerich, and he was an asshole, but you did not tell me about Time Mask and about the Time Mask.
The Mask too.
Time Mask.
Yeah, I was pitching The Mask, and there were time travel elements. So it was sort of like Bill and Ted. So the mask is the heroes are traveling with the mask through time, and different Abe Lincoln and Socrates and all these guys are ended up with the mask, just like in Bill and Ted. And he stopped me and said something about just some derogatory thing about my accent. And I was doing a bunch of different accents. Because when I do a pitch, and the accents don't match, like I can do Russian and I can do this and I can do that. So I would pop into different accents just for different people. And so anyway, he popped in to say that the Southern accent was "fuck your sister," cute, or something. I can't remember what it was, but
what an asshole.
He was just,
that's the only negative. That's the only time someone said something negative.
I mean, there may have been just some playful ribbing, but overall, no, it hasn't been a problem. In fact, I like the fact that I have the accent because it kind of made me stand out in the room.
Do you think it hurt you in any way?
Don't think so. I think there is certainly a connotation that Southerners aren't that smart, but it hasn't bothered me. I mean, it hasn't impacted me. I mean, either I got the job because the idea was good, or because the story was good, or the script was good, or I didn't. I don't think that had anything to do with it. But
well, I would have not guessed that. I'm happy that that's true. But I was sitting here thinking, guys, I can't remember anyone ever saying anything to us the whole time we've been doing Bonehead. Other than maybe it was a cue.
The only time, I mean, the having, going to Mississippi, I hear comments about it more than I do. Well, obviously, if I'm in Kentucky, everybody sounds like, or it sounds like a variation thereof. But I do. My students pick up on it when I'm in, which is funny because it's Mississippi. And I'm not saying that Mississippi, is odd, but they have their own accent. I mean, it's still Southern, but it's really. I'll put it this way: the students that have had me for a couple classes can always tell when I've been home recently, because I bring it back with me more, and I try to. When I'm teaching, I try to be like you said, Joe. I enunciate and I try to hit all the things. But yeah, it's the only other time that I've really had an experience with it was when I did an international presentation, and they were like, "What part of?" Because not to stereotype internationally, but they all expect New York. They expected a really, and instead they got tarn sharn it.
I got it in college, and I've had it many times throughout my life, but doing the convention work and doing Bonehead, I rarely, because I've often thought if that was one of the things, and you brought this upon yourself by bringing this subject up. So I love you, but just sit here for it. I've often thought if that was one of the things that has kept us from being more successful, because I appreciate your comment, but I was like, I think we do a fairly good job with content. And if you're into movies, then this isn't a bad show to listen or watch. And I've thought often, is it our accents that keeps us from going to that next level? Or are we just shit? That's another good point too.
Well, we also, one of the challenges I think we also have is we really don't have much of a hook. This is not to stereotype, but 3 white guys talking about pop culture. It's been done.
No. When?
I don't know. I think 1909 started.
And then I just heard it myself. I was like, when? When was
it?
When? Something with a vowel in the middle of it.
Speaking though of country accents and why am I blanking on Justified's name? The actor
Timothy Oliphant.
I read an interview when he was doing it, and his fascination.
And you do not have his mustache.
No, I don't. I barely. I'm not doing well at all. But that being said, Timothy Oliphant, in an interview between season 1 and season 2, they asked him about what's going to change. He goes, "Well, I think my pronunciation is getting better or more suited to the role." And they say, "Can you give us an example?" And he goes, "They say pen the same way." And he said, like pen or pin. And I was like, I can't do it because I say it the same way. Like there's no difference between pen. Yeah. So anyway, but I was like, wait a second. I feel a little bit attacked, and you're not on Takes Creek Road anyway.
Well, so what do you think are some movies that do a good job of not making us look stupid? I've got one example, but I want to hear you all first, because my problem with my example is they're villains.
Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil is
did you steal it from Chad?
That was what I was going to say. Yeah. So I'm glad me and Todd agree.
What I like about it, and it's something that Eastwood does a lot, is he will bring in legitimate people from the area and just let them be themselves.
Yeah.
And so you get a legitimate accent, you get a legitimate judge, you get I can't remember what her name was. Not the lead in the movie, but the movie certainly takes off. I can't remember what her name is. The trans lady.
Yeah. She's the real character. She's the one in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, she was the person from the actual story. So I mean, it's interesting that they did that, especially with tell a story like that with Eastwood being as politically conservative as he is. To tell a story like that, I just thought it was handled very well. That's the first one that popped in my head.
Mine is Winter's Bone. You guys remember Winter's Bone is the one that put Jennifer Lawrence on the map, but Jennifer Lawrence is from where? She's Kentucky. From Louisville. She's from Kentucky.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And what's that guy's name? The actor, John. He's the villain in it. I can't the guy from the guy from Dusk Till Dawn. He's in the opening scene. He's in Lincoln.
Oh, I know where you're talking about.
I wonder where he's from. Well,
he's been in several Tarantino movies, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question.
I mean, Garrett Dillon.
John Hawkes.
Yeah.
Garrett Dillahunt does a good acting. But you're right. Garrett Dillahunt also does it well.
Oh, by the way, John Hawkes is from Minnesota.
Well, that just shoots the shit right out of my theory.
But Winter's Bone is complicated too, though, because I think, well, Joe, I believe when we watched it, we had a different response than your wife did.
I don't remember her response. I just like the movie.
She was like, "Why doesn't
John Hawkes?
Why doesn't she?" I think your wife said something like, "Why doesn't she just contact the police? Like, why doesn't she just? This would all be over if she would."
But that's the accurate representation
that's what I mean.
of those folks.
Yeah,
you would not call the police in Eastern Kentucky.
No, I can remember being a kid and we had I say neighbor. We didn't have real neighbors. They were about a mile away. But I can remember being outside and somebody literally came running over and said, "Hey, the family over here, they called the cops on them. They've been shooting randomly out their windows." And my dad's exact words were, "Let's go in the house." Like he wasn't going to call anybody. The cops had already been called by somebody else. He goes, "I'm not involved. We're not getting involved in this. Go in the house." And we literally went in the house, watched TV for an hour, and then go, "Okay, let's go back out. We got work to do."
I had the same experience growing up across the road. I won't say their last name, but they were a big family. Slightly more impoverished. I was lucky we weren't in poverty, but they were slightly more impoverished, and they would get drunk on the weekends, and the one house was across the creek from the other one. They take pot shots. I remember sitting down on the porch watching them, listening to it. It was kind of like entertainment. And now there's no way I'd let my 4-year-old do that. No way. And we never would have called the cops on them. Never would have called the cops. And if someone got shot, and I bet this is true for you too as well, Todd, if someone got shot, what was the first thing that they said if someone got murdered? I'm just curious about if back home where you grew up.
I mean, I'm from Benton.
Yeah.
I don't remember anybody getting shot.
Well, people did get shot in the eastern part of the state, and it was, I bet they were into something.
Yeah, I've heard
it was never
being shot.
Yep, they would, if they'd have been home, they never would have been shot, would they, Todd?
You just stay at the house.
If they'd stayed at the house, they wouldn't have had problems. It's a different mentality. You don't call the cops. So what are some of the other positive ones? We've got Winter's Bone. Yes, Chad.
I'm gonna so my second pick, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Honestly, is Big Fish. It takes place in Alabama. All the characters are Southern. But it doesn't, and the reason why I say this is it doesn't really play into the fact that they're Southern. They have the accents. They're just in that location. It's not playing on anything other than the fact that they're in that part of the country and they have accents. It's just normal people acting back and forth.
I would argue that movie is more fantasy than Southern, but I could be wrong.
That is true. It is heavily on the fantasy side, but it's him telling stories,
which is a very Southern thing
to do. Exactly. Yeah. It's and Joe experienced this. Like I have a lot of personal experience with it where it kind of reminds me of certain aspects of my life. And I was like, it's just one of those other movies that I think if it captures an element of the South, it's done its job.
I've got one. I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
I was just going to say, where do we stand on Norma Ray?
I haven't seen it in a long time. Has anybody seen it in a long time?
It's been a long
Sally
time, but I
Field?
just know that's one that some people point to and say, well, it's not mean to Southerners.
I've got one, but it's not a good movie. But it's very accurate in a lot of the representations. Cameron Crowe's Elizabethtown.
Oh yeah, E-Town. Yeah.
But I don't think it's a very good movie.
No, it's not. But it is very Kentucky accurate.
It's Kentucky accurate. I mean, even they even brought in Paula Deen for that one to play the grandmother, and that's pretty close. So yeah,
I didn't remember that, but yeah, it's a very. I remember when I saw it, thinking it's very accurate.
It's very accurate of the way the people act. Now the characters that come in, not so accurate, and I can't imagine a lot of that. And I think that's where a lot of the movie falls apart. But the movie, for the way the Kentuckians are, is fairly accurate.
No, I would agree.
What are the ones you hate?
Oh, I can go right off the bat.
Yeah.
Not Fire Down Below. Oh, hell.
Fire Down Below is pretty damn bad, bud.
Yeah, Fire Down Below. That is the
shot in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Fire Down Below is just absolutely atrocious. It plays on every single stereotype about the South.
How about Next of Kin?
But it's also pretty bad. It's pretty close. That's also
it's not as
in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, it is not as bad as Fire Down Below.
Well, about 20 minutes of it. Have you ever seen either one of them, Todd?
Yeah, seen them both.
So Fire Down Below, one of the things that they shot that when I was at about 96, 97. They shot it in and around Breathitt County, and Perry County, Kentucky. And what I don't like about it, I mean, it's other than it's just a shitty movie. Steven Seagal made a couple of movies that are watchable, and that's not one of them.
Yeah. No.
So the bad part about it is the stereotypes that they did with it that aren't even accurate. Like a lot of these coal miners living in poverty, and that's not accurate.
No.
A lot of these coal miners, the reason why coal's popular is because it's a great way to make a really damn good living without going to any kind of school for the most part.
Yeah.
Well,
They never get that right. They're like having living in a shack. And I was like, no, the coal dude down, and this was in the 90s, is making 80 grand in Eastern Kentucky.
Well, I was gonna say, but do you think part of the problem is it's easy to take? I mean, in a lot of people's mind, coal still exists in coal towns, right? And coal towns were centers of poverty where the company controlled everything
At one point.
And that's it. But I mean, it's easy. I guess it's a cheap riding shortcut to go. None of that changed. These people are still poor, right?
Well, there's a whole diatribe he has where he says, and they're going to tell you, not enough blah, 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 and satellite dishes. And you get pissed and you go, well, yeah, there were probably a lot of satellite dishes because they didn't have cable.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's one of the things that makes it really hard to try to be accurate about the South and Kentucky and things like that, is that it really is all over the place. I mean, I did have an aunt that, I mean, she didn't want indoor plumbing for the longest time because I had never had it before. Why would I need it now?
Well, so Todd, what are some of the ones you hate? Can you think off the top of your head? Because I'm trying to get.
I mean, I'm just looking through a list. I mean, nothing really jumps out at me as far as that I hated. I mean, I think TV portrayed Southerners in a
way worse. Yeah.
Because every show, the concept was, here's a dumb. I mean, Gomer Pyle was a dumb military kid.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd. Sorry.
No. That's the thing. I mean, I can't think off. I mean, like Southern Comfort pop. I'm looking at that and going, okay, well, here's these guys taking on some Cajuns, but and that is Southern, but there's nothing dumb about it. It's just fish out of water.
Yeah, that plot would have worked. It's Aliens or anything else. You just take folks.
Yeah.
You take people who are in the military and drop them in a situation with hostiles. Right, they're in their territory, and they are seen as the invaders.
And I remember when we saw this living in Kentucky, when we saw Southern Comfort, like we rooted to some degree. We were rooting for the Cajuns because we were Southern to some degree, not totally. But it's like you're I don't know that rooting is the right word, but we certainly could relate to, you have stumbled into someone else's territory, you're in someone else's backwoods, and you shouldn't be there. And it's kind of like what you were saying before. Well, they must have been into something.
I heard it growing up, man. And as soon as I said it, I saw your face. You knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Well,
shit. I can't tell you who said it, but I've heard it said many times.
I've heard it said a lot of times. So Southern Comfort's a good example, but you may be right. It may be television that has damned us. I don't know.
Yeah, and I can think of one premier example over anything that we have talked about so far that pretty much solidified the stereotype of country hillbilly.
What is it?
Hee haw.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, that is the every Saturday morning.
Chad, I've searched the world over and thought I found true love. She met another
549.
But hee haw is a good example, but there's people who loved hee haw who were from the South.
God, my dad watched it every Saturday.
Well,
my parents, that was
Southerners making fun of themselves, which was okay. It's not New Yorker. If it had been a bunch of New Yorkers, that would be a problem. But you got Roy Clark, so I mean, you're okay.
Kicking and a grinning.
Grandpa Jones was from Irvine, Kentucky, Niagara, Kentucky.
I was about to say he was from Irvine, really?
No, I mean, and if you look at the cast, every single person from that cast, with the exception of one who was from Chicago, every single one is from the South: Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky.
Who was from Chicago?
Jim Hager.
I don't remember Jim Hager. I'd have to Google it.
If it ain't Minnie Pearl, I don't
remember the name.
So I really lucked out. I never had to watch Hee Haw.
Yeah, I don't have negative feelings about it. I mean, one of the reasons we watched it was we got 3 channels, and it was
you didn't have much choice. Yeah,
it was better than the Corn Report on the agricultural news channel.
I watched it. I'm like, why is this funny? It was literally just, I could not find any humor in anything on that show whatsoever.
I didn't like it.
I never found humor. I think it was the music that my parents liked it for. I mean, Roy Clark, and so I think that's more or less it. And the storytelling, going back to that storytelling aspect, when they would do the storytelling kind of pieces that weren't necessarily pure comedy, my parents liked that. And so, but I think that's one of the things too, and it gets to the idea of what television was available. At least as you were saying, at least Hee Haw was Southerners commenting on what it meant to be Southern.
I never. I mean,
you didn't have a lot of choice. You had Hee Haw, you had Lawrence Welk. I mean, there wasn't a lot of place to go.
And I was in a cornfield.
Bubbles.
And I would say I was in a cornfield way more than I was ever near a fabulous bubble machine.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Lawrence Welk was from North Dakota.
And there were, the other show that pops out was Doctor Who, which I didn't like either.
Yeah.
Back then, I didn't like the black and white Doctor Who's. I learned to appreciate them later, but God, I didn't like them at all.
Do you watch the current Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah.
So that's something my wife loves that I've still never been able to appreciate as Doctor Who.
Well, that is the Southern stupid part of you.
He got me. Fuck you, but he got me. He got me. He got me. Oh my God. Here's the thing about Doctor Who, and I don't mean to get off on a tangent. I love the Doctor. I love the idea of the Doctor. Every time I watch an episode, I was like, Jesus, this is so convoluted. I just get aggravated with it. I don't know. It just never speaks to me.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have watched it. I have watched it from the Eccles. I can't ever say his name. Eccleston. That's a Southern thing for me. It's that I have horrible pronunciation.
We do too. Yeah.
And that stands out. Like I will go in and talk to people and meet them and be saying their name wrong, but I get away with it because I'm a fucking stupid Southerner. And because a lot of people would say skip that first. It's not the first season. It's the first season of the reboot. They'll say skip that, but you can't do that because it's the introduction of Rose. It's the introduction of Harkness. I mean, it's the introduction of all this stuff that you got to be a part of.
But I have been on a stage with at least 4 different of those companions that I think you would be slightly jealous about. I will send pictures later. And it's great that I've been the one because it's always like Karen Gillan. I wanted to talk to her about a couple of her horror films more than I wanted to talk to her. And it was great. The agent was worried about it. I was like, it's just fine. She's fine. But, oh, yeah, she's a huge Kubrick fan. We had a conversation back and forth. We didn't even talk about
which one was she? Because I don't know the name.
Karen Gillan. Which one was she?
Yeah.
David Tennant.
David Tennant.
Yeah. She was redhead.
Yeah, and now she's in Guardians of the Galaxy, and yeah.
Well, see, because I'm Southern, I've always said Jillian in my head.
I think it's
which is not right.
No, I think not to call you a dumbass, but I think I got this one up on you.
Works.
I think I got this one up on you.
Well, that's okay.
That's how my head hurt.
Joe can vouch for this. I worked with somebody, and actually, I still stay in contact with somebody for years. We developed programs together. I still could not say her name correctly, because I have to pronounce it the way it looks in my head, even though I know that's wrong. So that's a common affliction.
You guys I'm older than you guys, but do you remember ITA? Do you remember that at all? It was a way when I was kindergarten and the first grade, it was a way they taught us to spell. And it's like for the word look, instead of the O and the two O's, there would be this squiggly line. It almost looked like a W, but it had a loop in the middle of it. And that's what we used for the word look. So it was L, the squiggly line, and a K. And there were different symbols for sounds. And that's the only one I actually remember, but there were several of them. And that's how we learned to spell. And then later we were supposed to replace this squiggly with the two O's. None of us from my year can spell. Absolutely none of us. The fact that we haven't sued, I don't know why we didn't come together and sue.
I think you just have a better memory. I have no idea how they taught me to spell. I have no recollection of it.
Oh, I definitely remember that.
And
I've talked to several friends who remember it.
Yeah, it's one of those
Sesame Street and a baseball bat.
I was going to say, you joke about that, but it's actually a conversation I've had because of and
your mustache.
No, I work in education, so I try to do proper pronouns as people's preferred pronouns and proper pronouns and things like that. And we were having a conversation about that, and I said, one of the reasons it's taken me some time is I remember people who did pronouns wrong getting hit with a ruler. Like if you did they with a singular in my elementary school.
I didn't know you went to Catholic school.
I didn't. I didn't. I went to a very we didn't have a principal. We had a head teacher because, and this is true, women shouldn't be principals. I'm not that old, folks, but in the area that I was in,
that's
in the area that I was in, because it was a female, they used the term head teacher, and she still believed in capital punishment and all that stuff. And if you, you didn't. She also, by the way, is where I learned some curse words. I didn't learn how most of them I learned from my father. But every blue moon, she would get mad, and you could actually hear her from her office. And that was my elementary school experience. Speaking of why we didn't get together and sue, actually, she was a phenomenal teacher, just short-tempered.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, you're talking about pronouncing things. I actually found out a year or two ago that I was tongue-tied, which is a funny thing because I talk a lot. And
I don't even know what that means. I know what the term means.
Basically, my tongue only goes out so far. I forgot what it's called underneath. Should have been clipped when I was a baby. And
it's overly connected, right?
It's overly connected, and I should have had that done. And then a friend of mine, through Christy, I was having some work done, oral surgeon. My wife works in dentistry. She was like, you're going to, and I know this lady, and she was like, Joe, when did you not know you were tongue-tied? And I'm 43. Well, I guess when it happened, I was 41, 42 years old. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, you are. No, did no one ever tell you? I go, no one ever mentioned it. Cut to 3 weeks later, talking to my mom, I go, did you know? And she goes, no. Well, yeah, I did.
We just didn't care enough to.
I said, really? She goes, yeah, you had some problems attaching, but they never. And I said, why didn't you get it fixed? Now it's too late, but it explains when I was in Spanish 101 and made a D in college, why I could never roll my R's.
I can't do that either, though.
I can't do it.
Not tongue-tied.
I can't do it either, but it's because I don't give a shit.
Are you sure it's because you don't give a shit, or are you
pretty sure
that I think there's a generation of us who did not get proper medical care in Kentucky, rural Kentucky.
Roll it back. When I was in high school, I didn't care. Now, when I think of the languages that I would like to learn, Spanish is one of the languages that I wish I had learned or paid more attention to the 2 years that I took the class.
I had German in high school. It was all the damnedest things to have in Eastern Kentucky. We had a German teacher. Yeah,
French
and
Spanish, and I never learned either one of them.
Yeah. I technically had, like you said, 2 years of Spanish, and every blue moon it comes up. But I also think the person who was teaching me Spanish, we asked him once how to say blades as in blades of grass, and he goes, I don't know, but I know axes. Just write down axes. I'll know what you mean. And I'm like, my confidence in my learning Spanish dropped just immediately.
Same thing with my German teacher. She could not tell you how to ask to go, because you're supposed to speak in German in class. She did not know how to say correctly how to ask to go to the bathroom in German. We had to say die Ecke bitte, around the corner, please. Now that shit has stuck with me for 30 years.
But what that means is if you ever are in a German place where they only speak German and need to use the bathroom, you're completely hosed now.
I'm completely hosed. I guess I just go die Ecke bitte and start grabbing my junk.
Which is actually your normal go-to anyway.
It's what I do in the office, going around the corner, please. Around the corner. And I'm grabbing my penis. Anyway, somehow we've got off topic about our accents.
Well, actually, going back to I think the best way to sum up how people have failed and outside forces have failed.
Humanity
Kentucky.
has failed, James.
Yes, how outside forces failed Kentucky is best summed up by the Learning Channel. Okay. Do you know the history of the Learning Channel?
Why don't you go ahead and tell us? I feel like I'm about to learn the history. What do you think, Todd? Do you think we're about to learn the history of the Learning Channel?
The Learning Channel
involves NASA.
Do I know what the Learning Channel
absolutely,
is?
Chad. It does involve NASA. You're absolutely right. 1972 to 1980, the Learning Channel was originally started as the Appalachian Educational Satellite Project to beam in high-quality shows from NASA, from all these elite places, to better allow access to people that were in very rural areas. And they were going to set up satellites and they were going to do all that stuff. And that lasted until 72 to 80. It was the Appalachian Educational Satellite Project. Well, about 1980, they go, we could probably turn this into something that would actually be profitable. And then that's when it became the Learning Channel. But it was still they had authors on, they did all of that stuff. And I'm going to cut ahead to the chase. Now it's the home of whatever spinoff to Honey Boo Boo is still on. I don't know. But to go from something that was meant to bring in authors and science and NASA and all of that stuff to whatever show Mama June has now.
What was the year of the launch? Because I don't remember the Learning Channel.
1972. And it wasn't originally called the Learning Channel. It was actually called the big long title Appalachian Educational Satellite Project, AESP. Is what it originally broadcast.
They didn't actually
was it PBS? Or K? What would we call it? KECT?
KET is what it's called.
KET.
KET.
Yeah.
Kentucky Educational Television.
It evidently was. You had to have a satellite to get it, and the thinking was that because so many rural people, as Joe said, did have satellites, that it would have. But obviously, my family still had an old antenna, and we got nothing, and we liked it.
We was living high on the hog. We actually had a satellite. So
I know
it was the size of a small house, but we had one.
We had one the size of a small house. And actually, I'm not being sarcastic. Thank God, because it really gave me somewhat of an education. And once again, I'm not being sarcastic. I was able to watch movies and shows that I never would have been without that actually gave me, unfortunately or fortunately, I prefer to see it as fortunately, a glimpse into a bigger world that I didn't have access to.
Well, there was certainly a lot of porn.
Well, there you go too. Well, I was trying to look at the positive parts of it.
Well, but I mean,
movies that I watched. Positive?
Well, there is probably, but I was probably too young to be watching it. Oh, I did watch porn though. Yeah, you got a good damn point. But
it's one of those. With the satellite, if I remember correctly, you bought the satellite and then you didn't pay for anything else. That was just sort of it. Once you had the satellite,
and you
could watch all these different things. And so, I would come in I think I was either in high school or I was in college, but I'm, it's late night, everybody's in bed, and I'm flipping through, and then I'm like, and there's like people doing really dirty stuff, and I'm like,
see, you and I are separated by between about 8 years, and you saw it probably at more of an appropriate age.
I did see it, and it was,
it was a big problem for Joe because he tried to nurse on the screen.
Well, I mean, who hasn't tried that?
But in fair,
it redefined the term boob tube.
He wasn't even that smart. He just started sucking on the knob.
Don't get descriptive about which knob we're talking about. So it actually helped me give me at least a film education that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. And I actually see it as a positive. And my parents divorcing and then making me a latchkey child really young, that was also probably not good, but a positive thing for the person I turned out to be.
Well, but I mean, obviously your parents weren't happy, right? I mean, so if
I don't know if they're happy now.
But if they would have stayed together, would it have been any better? No, it probably would have been. Well,
I don't begrudge either one of them for it. No, absolutely not. No. And that wasn't the point of, but it was, now as a father, because the other three of you fuckers are fathers too, you probably,
I haven't seen the blood work.
You probably wouldn't, according to the court order, you probably wouldn't let your child do certain things that you did as a kid, or at least have some of the same access. Right?
No, but I think that's the other thing though, is the access is so different now, right? I mean,
Todd, go ahead.
My son plays video games with people all around the world, and literally it's one of those things where I'm like, occasionally I'll have to be like, what is that person saying? Are they? I mean, the language pops up sometimes, and quite frankly though, in the back of my mind, even though I'm like, they need to watch their language, I'm like, he hears this at school. I mean, because I know that because every negative thing I ever heard, I heard on the school bus going to kindergarten.
Oh my God, I was saying fucking shit when I was 6 years old. So
you say fucking shit.
Yeah, that too.
It's never been like I have sat down several times and had the conversation with Izzy, and that conversation is what society will allow you to do without being judged. And I said, so if you want to say the word fuck, these are all the many things that it means. It means this. It's one of the most diverse words in the English language. It can be used for basically anything. Mm-hmm. But you can't use it in public because you will be judged for that. But you can use it in your writing. You can use it in your thoughts. You can use it when you are with your friends. I don't care. It's just a word. I'm not going to condemn you for using a word or any word. But society does judge us. So for that, I've never had a problem. Now, when it comes to when I was a kid, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, I would get up, the sun would come up, you'd get up, have some breakfast, get on your bike, and you'd leave. And we would come home 9, 10 o'clock at night. And mom and dad had no idea where I was because we didn't have cell phones. It's just you left and you were gone. And I'm not saying that pedophilia and all the horrible things that happen today didn't happen back then, but I mean, I never ran into it. And none of my friends that I know of ran into it. It's just we lived in a more open world. I would not let Izzy leave the house at 12 years old on her bike and her not come home until 9. It's just not something that will ever, in my mind, be allowed.
So we've talked about this before. I wonder, is it that there's that much more, or is it the media and we're just that much more aware of it? I go back and forth.
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I think we're more aware of it, and I think I think there's more.
You think there's more of it?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I know that there's clearly more mass killings. I know there's clearly more. Yeah.
There's more. It's not. I don't know that there's necessarily more racism now than in the 50s. I mean, but it's certainly. It feels like it's more acceptable.
It's more acceptable because it has a better communication with other people across the country. Yeah, I mean, it's you got racist assholes in California. Hey,
it used to be. Chris Rock has that joke, right? That it used to be that you had that one weird uncle, but everybody knew that was your weird uncle, but he was by himself, and you just never went to Uncle blah blah blah's house by yourself. But now the problem is Uncle Blah Blah has access to the internet, and he's going to hook up with 15,000 other individuals, and they're going to trade secrets. They're going to trade ways to do. I think it's one of the things that I do think about, and I don't want to say political correctness, because I don't think that's what it is. But the news story that came out on NBC yesterday, day before yesterday, coming out of, I want to say, Texas, where they said, if you have a book on a certain topic, the Holocaust, for instance,
you have to do
you need to have a counterpoint. And I'm like, if I'm teaching Anne Frank, do I have to have Mein Kampf? Because I have an issue with that. That's a very different.
Yeah, it doesn't translate into English well.
But I still think that and I think that is the minority of thinking. And that's the part I think that bothers me the most, is I think most Republicans do not want another 4 years of what we had the last 4 years. I think the majority does not want that, but there is a vocal minority that's controlling the airwaves. It's getting all of the media attention. And I don't think I think that's dangerous. And because it leads everyone to think that is a norm, and it's not a norm. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day. The year before I was born, Sidney Poitier had 3 movies that came out. And you have to help me remember these all. It was Look Who's Coming to Dinner. Not the Defiant ones, because that was a lot earlier than that. It was Heat of the Night and
To Serve with Love.
To Serve with Love, yes. So those are 3 very those are all movies. One's about a interracial relationship. To Serve with Love is about a black teacher. And in the heat of the night is, I think, a Chicago detective who comes down to the rural South to solve a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Those 1967, it's almost like, how did that even happen the year before I was born? I mean, and you look at today, you look at the media today, you look at the what's happening in the world today with racism and that sort of thing. It's like, have we made any steps forward? We have, but it feels like we haven't sometimes.
Well, as I was saying, the amount of people that are furious, and I love the scientific way they try to justify their stance on it. But like the Superman thing, Superman, it's technically Superman's son is bisexual.
Roy Kent.
Yes, and it's he's going to be bisexual, and the amount of people that immediately went possible. And I think I give credit. Patton Oswalt had the best response. Yeah, the guy that's allergic to green rocks, and that if he gets exposed to purple kryptonite does this and this. Him being bisexual, that's too far. That's unbelievable. Him flying around the world's perfectly fine. And it blows my mind, because I think that's probably one of the best things my father ever said when I was growing up, was when he never really had the talk with me. But he did say, listen, if you are gay, your life's going to be harder. I don't want it to be harder. That's the world that we live in. He said, and I don't necessarily understand it, but that was him. That was my father doing the best he could to say, it is, that's it. You are who you are. That being said, I parallel that with what I heard from pretty much everybody else around me. And that was, of course, fire, brimstone, and all that stuff. So it's really interesting, like you said, that we have advanced, but what gets airtime has not advanced.
So I think we're just less vocal about it. We just do it. It's like the John Gruden. We were talking about John Gruden last night, because we did another interview before this one tonight. And after we were done, we were talking about all the fallout, if you're an NFL fan, with the emails. And the racists now just say something in public and then get with their friends and talk the way they want to.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a good friend of mine, and James used to work with her as well. She would say, she's a friend of ours. She was African-American, and she would say her grandmother put it best. She's like, I preferred the older ones. I at least knew who they were.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, my aunt, she does not see herself as racist, but she will say things like, well, they do have more crime. I was like, who is they? And, and talking, I think I told you guys, talking to my dad, he was like, well, he was talking about Indian food and this couple that runs an Indian restaurant. He was like, well, you can smell them coming around the corner. So can you? Yeah, you can smell all of them. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
wow. It's one of the things that I really struggle with, because my grandmother was, well, I don't know if anybody in my family listens to this, but she was not a good person. She was terrible. Because that was, speaking of the stereotype of Kentucky, I always use the example that my grandmother created some of those stereotypes, because when I went to college, I was getting above my race. Yeah, you didn't need to go. And when she found out that I was marrying somebody, because I wasn't married at 16, she was worried about me, because that was her threshold. But then when I finally got married and I took my wife to meet her, she immediately said terrible things to my then fiance. But the best part about it was she goes, now what do you do? She goes, oh, I'm in law school. Everybody else, my mother, is happy. She goes, you took a man's spot to do man's work. And I'm like, I literally looked at him like, if you want to leave me now, that's fine. Let's not have the wedding. I completely understand after this debacle. And she goes, no, that's fine. I was like, she goes, do we have to see her often? I'm like, no, I don't like seeing her. I never had that grandmother. Like I had I borrowed this line from Jim Barney. Speaking of people from Kentucky, he has the line as Ernest where he goes, I had two good, where he's dressed as the older woman. I had two sons and the good one died. That's the joke I always make about my grandmothers. The grandmother that baked cookies, that always loved all her grandchildren, died right after I was born. The one that said terrible things to every human being lived till I was in my 30s.
Hey, Boneheads, this is Joe Lewis. Just letting you know that ends part 1 of us talking about stereotypes and, how we all sound dumb if we're Southern and we've been indoctrinated with this bullshit. Part 2 with Todd next week is going to be about morality in cinema, morality in our pop culture. It's a really great topic. Can't wait for you to tune back in. Come see us next week. Thank you.